There's something going on. Your freedom is in danger. Agents of the state can take your children from the manger. Or they will sacrifice your kid. Take
Brendan Dassey, that's exactly what they did.
They needed someone on how Jody wouldn't flip. They looked around, saw him quick. Oh, it made so much sense why.
Oh, Brendan Dassey, he was Steven's alibi.
There's something going on in Wisconsin that's not kosher. We better stop, let's all take a look closer.
Oh, they will sacrifice your kid. Take Brendan Dassey, that's exactly what they did.
They visit him once, they visit him twice, and make him feel so safe. Sandwiches, soda, so nice. No cameras rolling and under no lights. Who knows what went up on in Box Hill Monday night? There's something going on. I said your freedom is in danger. Everything about this case getting stranger and stranger. All we know, they will sacrifice your kid. Poor Brendan Dassey, that's exactly what they did.
Hello everybody, this is Eric Jose on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover the Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey cases, but also as time passes I've been covering other cases such as the Staircase or OJ and many wrongful convictions of youth. I go over the documents, the photos, the videos, anything case related, so stay tuned because I have many more videos just like the one you're about to see. Hello there everybody, how you doing today? So today I'm kind of going back and picking up some of the affidavits filed by Zellner's experts. Videos that I had done back when they were very first filed back in June of 2016, I believe it was. Anyways, so back then when had all the original affidavits of her experts. Well, today we're going to be looking at the affidavit that was filed by none other than, of course, after speaking to G-Man Steve Moore recently, we're going to talk about Greg McCreary. So this is the affidavit filed by Greg McCreary. And so, you know, it's going to go through some of the things like I was talking about with Steve Moore. It's going to talk about victimology. It's going to talk about moving too quickly from a evidence-based investigation to a suspect-based investigation and the pitfalls that are inherent in doing that. A lot of things. This guy is he's the guy when it comes to investigations in a lot of ways. When the Swedish FBI was setting up their, FBI essentially there over in Sweden, Greg McCreary is the guy that got nominated to go over to help them, to advise them on how to get their FBI up and running over there in Sweden. That tells me that a lot of people respect him and to have suggested him for that job, right? So he's obviously very well respected. You heard obviously what Steve Moore said. Steve Moore said he knows McCrary's not for sale. So, that just gives more credibility obviously to Mr. McCreary. So we're going to see some of the things that Mr. McCreary has to say about this investigation here, and we'll see you again at the end. I have been professionally involved in violent crime investigations for more than 45 years, including 25 years as an FBI agent. In that capacity, I investigated violent crimes as a field agent for approximately 17 years, and then was promoted and transferred to the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia, as a supervisory special agent, where I worked in the National Center for the Analysis of Violent Crimes. There, I was assigned to the operational wing of the Behavioral Science Unit, where my primary responsibility was to provide expertise in investigative techniques and crime scene analysis in violent crime investigations, both to the FBI agents as well as to any law enforcement agency around the world that requested FBI assistance. My other responsibilities including conducting research into violent and sexually violent crimes and offenders and providing training to law enforcement agencies nationally and internationally. So this guy's got a lot of, stuff going on. It's very impressive. Let me read off some. We got the New York City Police Department, New York State Police, Texas Rangers, Boston Police Department, let's see, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, California Attorney General's Office, Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Massachusetts State Police, Kansas City, Missouri Police, where else we got? We got the National de Policia in Spain, Budapest Homicide, the Hungarian National Police, the French National Police, Scotland Yard, the Dutch National Police. All right, and it just goes on and on. I mean, the guy's helped out a lot of places. Now, one other thing there that he's done is he was most recently, in October of 2016, was helping the Swedish FBI. He was training the Swedish FBI to how to investigate, what investigative, techniques and all that sort of stuff. It was him. He's the guy that was chosen to be sent over to Sweden, a sovereign nation, from our FBI to train them. So apparently a lot of people have a pretty freaking high opinion of this guy as an investigator. So just saying that, leaving it out there as for whatever you want to say about it. But anyways, so now we're going to move into what I was telling you about with him, and that his main thing when he starts investigating is victimology, study of the victim. So we're going to see this right now. He's going to go ahead and explain it to you in his own words in his affidavit, and then we'll come on back. I hold the following opinions regarding police practices and investigative procedures to a reasonable degree of professional certainty. Every meaningful analysis of violent crime begins with victimology, i.e., a study of the victim or victims. Victimology is the collection and assessment of all significant information as it relates to the victim and his or her lifestyle, personality, employment, education, friends, habits, hobbies, marital status, relationships, dating history, sexuality, reputation, criminal record, history of alcohol or drugs, physical condition, and neighborhood of residence are all pieces of the mosaic that comprises victimology. The bottom line is, who was the victim and what was going on in his or her life at the time of the event? Was the victim having problems? Had the victim recently expressed any fears? Did the victim express any concerns about his or her security? Was the victim in a relationship? Ascertaining the victimology is the key to any successful investigation, which is interesting because she did express to Tom Pierce she did have somebody bothering her and troubling her. So that's interesting. Okay, so I think there we have officially established that he puts a lot of stock in victimology, and that studying the victim in a case is really more important than anything else, which I think is pretty much the way everybody's taught investigation. But anyways, he's looking at this case as an investigator with 50 years experience at the highest level that you could, an FBI investigator for 17 years, and then moved on to these more, prestigious posts, I guess, or, things that, prestigious jobs or, assignments. It's pretty impressive that he was chosen to help train the Sweden FBI, Swedish FBI. That's, you're building an FBI, who do you go to? McCrary's your man. A lot of people had to say that for him to end up there. I'm just saying. So now we're going to go into what he's talking about with an investigation, going from a evidence-based investigation to a suspect-based investigation, and how, his criticism in this case as to how quickly that happened. So we're going to go ahead and see what he has to say about that here, and we'll come on back. Moving prematurely from an evidence-driven investigation to a suspect-driven investigation is particularly problematic and a common feature in investigative failures. The attitude becomes, we know who did it, now let's get the evidence that proves it. This type of tunnel vision leads to confirmation bias in searching for and interpreting evidence. Alternate hypotheses are not considered, and alternate suspects not properly investigated. Mrs. Halbach's vehicle was discovered on Mr. Avery's property on November 5th of 2005, and at that point it appears that all investigation into her ex-boyfriend's potential involvement in Miss Halbach's disappearance and death stopped. At that point, it appears that detectives moved from an evidence-based investigation to a suspect-based investigation targeting Mr. Avery. For example, on the morning of November 5th, 2005, shortly after Ms. Halbach's vehicle was found, and 4 days before Mr. Avery's arrest, a Manitowoc County detective was recorded asking if Mr. Avery had been taken into custody yet. This is a strong suggestion that investigators had shifted a suspect-based investigation with Mr. Avery as that suspect. An unimportant point related to this is that well-trained and supervised law enforcement officers should have ensured that Manitowoc County authorities were not involved in this investigation due to an obvious conflict of interest. Mr. Avery had filed a $36 million lawsuit against Manitowoc County, alleging that they had wrongfully convicted him for a rape, for which he had served nearly 18 years in prison. Alright, so now he's going to go back into victimology here. And he's going to explain why Teresa would be at an elevated risk for, violence of this sort. So we're going to go ahead and move into this now, and we'll come on back. Teresa Halbach, the victim in this case, could be considered to be at an elevated risk for becoming the victim of violence due to her prior abusive relationship with her ex-boyfriend Ryan Hillegas and her business, which involved nude photography and advertised other adult services. Affidavit of Tom Pierce attached. She also had an affair with a married man who subsequently got divorced and had a brief sexual relationship with her ex-boyfriend's best friend, with whom she shared a house. She sustained both verbal and physical abuse in her relationship with her ex-boyfriend. At the time of her death, the ex-boyfriend was unemployed, lived close by, and visited her home frequently. The day before her death, the ex-boyfriend was at her house but provided vague statements to authorities as to when and why he was there. I have seen no evidence that he offered an alibi of any sort of any statement regarding his activities. From October 31st of 2005 to November 3rd of 2005, nor have I seen any evidence that the authorities ever asked him to do so. Mr. Hillegas injected himself into the police investigation by taking an active role in the search party, as we all know. So, my takeaway there is this. The prosecution failed to realize that they had a suspect with motive, opportunity, and all these things. There was a history. And the prosecution didn't see this. Instead went after a suspect, went after him at trial without being able to offer a motive. Okay? Without being able to offer the motive. I mean, if you had somebody who obviously had motive and the ability, the access, probably knew everything about her, and all the things that she did, if he lived that close to her and was unemployed, and if he was the one that was harassing her, that she was talking to Tom Pierce about, but wouldn't fully tell Tom who it was. But if it was him, that's a lot of pieces fitting together. That's it. It's no big secret. I've never ever said, oh yes, I'm sure that Ryan's, the one that did it. But I will tell you this: I have never been able to confidently say no. I don't think that I don't think there's a high percentage that he is involved, possibly did it. There's something about him. He's dodgy. The way he's so dodgy on the stand, just the vagueness of his memory. It's funny because in one of my videos recently, I actually, had found this piece of press that showed him saying exactly when he had called Teresa's phone on November 1st and on November 3rd, I believe it was. So anyways, it showed, but in court, he could only remember one of them. He could only remember the one on the 3rd, or whatever. But so this piece of press showed that he said he called it on the 1st and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it was demonstrating that the voicemail box was full and all that stuff. So anyway, the guy is just dodgy. And that's why he is suspect. It's not a mystery that he is suspect. I'm sorry. Some people are out there saying, "Oh, it's not fair. He's not a suspect. He shouldn't be a suspect." It's like, no, I'm sorry. That's one thing that everybody thought about him. Most everybody thought about him when they saw him. is that he came off as dishonest. And the whole fact that he came off as purely dishonest, yeah, it's just, this is going to forever plague him because that's the way he came off. And, you know, win, lose, or draw, whatever it is, that's the way he came off. He looked dishonest. He looked like he was basically trying to hide or obscure, you know, things. And, yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. It's no mystery that Ryan Hillegas became a suspect. So, we're going to move into the last clip now, especially when they could offer a motive. Like I said, just wanted to point that out one more time. No motive for Stephen Avery. Would have had one with Ryan. Investigators are gatekeepers for the rest of the criminal justice system. At their best, investigators can protect us from some of society's most dangerous predators. At their worst, they can create and perpetuate egregious injustices. Investigators must keep an open mind about how to interpret data and evidence until they have gathered as many facts as possible. At its inception, an investigation should be multidimensional. No single hypothesis or suspect should be either embraced or eliminated until all pertinent facts and evidence have been collected and thoroughly examined. So, what this highly experienced investigator is telling us that there's two major mistakes made in this case that make it question, that make it suspect, and that is the fact that, number one, there was not victimology. They did not do victimology, or at least they did not do nearly enough victimology on Teresa. They should have seen and pieced together what he pieced together. He's basically just saying right there, boom, this is a huge miss. Huge. And the fact that he went looking for them, asking Ryan for an alibi. And he said he couldn't even see any appearance that they ever asked him for one. I mean, really. I mean, seriously. So, he's pointing it out. Just going, look, there, right there. Big, huge problem. Hello, okay, so that wraps up the, the affidavit from Greg McCrary, basically FBI investigator, or retired FBI investigator, who is basically Zellner's expert on investigations. So, there you have right there, basically his bones to pick with this investigation. And, I happen to find it interesting. I happen to believe that, Greg McCrary is, well, like G-Man Moore said the other day, he knows McCrary's not for sale. So it's about the justice for him. It's about the integrity of investigations for Greg. That's something that's important and means something to him. So that's about it for today, everybody. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you.